this problem is known to all of you. You have flagged this issue ever since we started this MSME Trade Facilitation Committee in the GST, along with the SGST and DIC. Over the last 1.5 years, you have raised many a time, and we see that this has attracted the attention of the government because of the constant, agitation of this issue in various forums. In fact, there was a parliament question also in 2023. What measures government has taken? The 6 major measures that were mentioned by the minister that time were the formation of this MSME council for dealing with the delayed payments, then the Samadhan portal, and then the sub-portal in Samadhan for the public sector undertaking. Apart from that, the insistence on the 500 crore above turnover, not just the private sector, but also the public sector enterprises to register on the TREDS portal, the Trade Receivables Discounting System portal, and also the Companies Act prescribing the half-yearly return to be filed by companies which take supplies from MSMEs. So around 6 measures were mentioned, and I think the measures or the MSME section 15 to 24 prescribe this 45-day limit from the time of agreement or 15 days from the acceptance of the goods or service. So this timeline is with the Finance Act 2023 got into the income tax provisions, and it has gained a lot of traction, a lot of debate has happened, and whether it is actually helping the MSMEs or not, because there are some concerns that exporters or maybe the big undertakings are not preferring to take supplies from MSMEs. So in this context, we thought in this day, which is very hot, and especially when the hot topics are around the election campaign, we thought this old hot topic of MSMEs, we will, debate at the union territory level, so that we get a clarity on the, not just the legal provisions, but then the enforcement or implementation of these from the perspective of the chartered accountants and the tax practitioners, and also the MSMEs themselves, what are they doing in this regard. So I think the learnings or the discussions in this forum will be of great help, not just to the MSMEs who are participating, but also to the policy makers, or who, even the state government, who are industries and commerce department, who will use these inputs, I think, to give feedback on the system so that it is further improved. So we are very happy from the CGST family to host this symposium, and we will be gaining from the discussions here so that we can advise MSMEs in our council. And I would, being from the tax department, I would like to also share a few tax figures. Everybody would like these figures. Last full financial year, we have in the Pondicherry, we have 2,658 crores has been collected, around 835 crores from the central taxpayers, and 1,700 plus from the state taxpayers. Our growth rate has been around 10%, which is slightly less than the national average, but it has slightly improved this month with the GST payments pertaining to March. That is I think the headline in today's papers. Our growth is also better than the last financial year, and I thank all of you for contributing to the national exchequer. Thank you.
Since we represent all the industries, and MSME contributes much in for the GDP, country's GDP, almost 29%, 29.15% as per the latest figure. MSME contributes to the GDP and 45.5% contribution towards the exports. So that is the industry we are talking about today. When we talk about this delayed payment, the issue for MSMEs, when the payment is delayed, actually most of the industries work as a tier 2 or tier 3 vendor for major companies. When they work as a tier 2 and tier 3 vendor, so they have challenges in cash flows. So MSME's biggest challenge is the cash flow. When they go for a bank support, banks, majority of the banks, except few banks, majority of the banks provide loans or OD facility or CC, whatever it is. Mostly it's based on a collateral. And it's not that all the industries can provide collateral and take the necessary loans or CC limits so that they can continue their supply chain, because they need to support their cash flow. But this delayed payments always put the MSMEs under trouble, because they get into cash flow issues. When they have a cash flow issues, they lose the supply chain. They could not able to pay their vendor in time, then their supply issue starts, then they could not able to supply in time. So finally it ends up with the loss of business. So during this competitive world, because MSMEs, as I said, work as the tier 2 and tier 3 vendors. And majority of the Pondicherry industries, we have close to 200 plus plastic injection molding companies across the Pondicherry. And most of them are not OEMs, like they supply as the vendors. So for them, they don't have their own product, they supply as the vendors. When the major companies, the big companies delay their payment, they could not able to supply in time, and they cannot deny the supply also, because they lose the order, they lose their vendor registration. So they have to struggle themselves, they have to take additional loans from external sources, that they have to pay additional interest. All those things they have to go through. Finally, it ends up with a low margin, and finally it ends up with a non-profit organization. Finally, someday they have to close down. We have seen many examples like that, and many of the industries are already, we know that as a Pondicherry CII, we have been seeing a lot of industries are closed here in the past records, and we have very less number of industries now. As CII, we are trying to bring more new industries to the system, but due to various issues, we could not able to bring more new industries. But the existing industries can extend or expand their operation, provided they have the support from the authorities. And one of these support is these payments in time. That one support can do a lot more support for the MSME. Because when they get the payment in time, definitely they can reinvest on their infrastructure. They can do the expansion. Even we have challenge in getting the additional EV and all. But even to get additional machinery, even to avail the additional EV, whatever it is, finally it ends up in funds. The funds has to come from the supply chain, so they have to get it from the vendor. So currently the MSMEs are getting 45 days payment, and that's what given as per the rule. But majority of the companies are actually giving 90 days or 120 days, and we are not in a position to even negotiate on that. Now companies have started creating agreements, vendor agreements for 120 days. If you don't agree for this vendor 120 days or 90 days, we cannot be a vendor. So that is also a challenge. So MSMEs, they have to go for it, and they have to struggle themselves. Finally, they struggle a lot. They create more tax support to the government. They create more employment to the society. And finally, what ends up, they end up with a very low margin. Finally, they also make loss. Not all the industries, but some of the industries. So it's a very competitive world. As we see, we are trying to become third economic power in the world. We need a support from the MSME. So we are competing against the Chinese vendor, because the majority of the companies, they import some of the components from China and Taiwan. But where we need to compete against their price. So if we want to compete against Chinese vendors, then we need to produce in volumes. If we need to produce in volume, then we need to buy in bulk as our raw material. If we want to buy the raw material in bulk, then we need more cash. If we need more cash, we need a timely payment, or we need support, so bank support. Even to get the bank support, our cash flow has to be good, our P&L has to be good. So finally, it ends up there only. So that's the reason why MSME is always, we try to get the support, timely payment, the great support for all the MSME. And so we request the authorities to strongly recommend this, to continue this system, whatever we have, this 45 days payment and the MSME support system, whatever government is trying to do. So we want that support to be continued. That is the request from the CI.
Categories as MSME, they are all working on the bank's money. They are not having their own money, or just they are working on the borrowed money. So they have to pay the interest, they have to maintain the inventory, all these things are there. But mostly the payment for the MSME are not coming as per this law, whatever the 45 days. They sometimes customers are saying that they are not taking the delivery on time. Actually, even though they dispatched the material to the customer, due to this payment issue, some customers are keeping the material in the warehouse itself, in the transporter place itself. And for that, actually, the MSME sector are paying more money on inventory, as well as even damages has to be paid by the MSME only. So my request is how the government missionaries is going to implement this payment within 45 days from the date of invoice. Actually, the MSME should get the payment from the date of invoice, not from the date of receipt, actually. So there is, I think they are playing on that date of receipt at all. So this has to be implemented immediately. And another thing is, whatever the payment they are giving, as he said, our chairman said, now they are insisting to give more credit period. Otherwise, the competitor is ready to give 120 days or 100 days, more than 100 days. So no other go, the suppliers are struggling to get the order. So they are accepting for the 120 days. But in what they say, in the agreement, we will put only 45 days, but practically we will pay 120 days. This has to be taken note of this part. Only thing, these 45 days, actually, how the government is going to make note of, or how to implement with the large concerns. Actually, they are saying, and large concerns are least bother about any machineries, government rules and other things. They say, we will pay as we like. That's what we are facing now. And see, many of the MSMEs are not knowing about the government schemes or government rules, whatever the thing. So do you have any idea of displaying the rules and regulation, or what are the facilities available, all these things? Do you have any idea how to bring it to the MSME? So here we have a small group of people who are representing MSME, but do you have any mass media propaganda about this facility by the government?
I just want to add one more point. See, companies are now coming out with the bill discounting scheme, which is quite popular in some of the industries that are providing bill discounting, where they'll discount about 7 to 9% on the bill. They'll issue the immediate payment. This now followed by majority of the industries. But this bill discounting scheme can be extended by the bank to the MSME with the lower interest. That can be one of the additional support can be brought, and this can be even suggested to the government or finance department, so that the MSMEs can continue to support their vendors. And even if we get discounting at 3%, 4%, which is less than a bank interest, would be good, because still we lose that 4% of our margin, but that can be managed. But at least that kind of a support will give a greater financial support to the MSME. So now we are discounted at 7 to 9%, depending on the industry. Some industries are doing a discount at 7% and some industries are doing a discount of 9%. But that is little on the higher side. If you calculate 9% is most of the MSMEs when they release their P&L, their PAT would be fall under 7 to 9%. If we discount all the bills, then our PAT is gone. So that can be, extended officially by the banks or public sector banks, even the private bank. Private banks is a little tough, but at least public sector banks or SIDBI or any other financial institution suggested by the government or even MSME, there are NSIC centers also there. They are providing some inventory support. Those kind of institutions also can do the bill discounting. Now they are doing for procurement support. Instead of that procurement support, they can also do this kind of a bill discounting. Also, this bill discounting can be somehow connected to the GST payments, which is available, the GST reserves what they have. Because if you take all the MSMEs, at least they may be having some GST reserves on their accounts. So they can do something connecting with the GST reserves and the bill discounting so that they'll get a better discount, at least payment in time, so that the supply chain goes smooth. So this is something we would love to receive support.
Actually, the main thing is that government support you for making the payments in 15 to 45 days. It's good. But actually, actual figures are 40. It's not 45, 60 to 140 days, as our chairman said. The main thing is that apart from this, now we are working on the systems and payments going to get better. But with respect to we are inverted tax system scale. Normally, we have excess reserves in our ITCs. We at the end of each financial year, we consider this to be a receivables and we pay tax for it as per norms. When the payment to us from the parties is for maximum of 15 to 45 days by something. What about our inverted system tax credit with our ITCs? It's going to delay. It's over. We have a lot of reserves in all pharma segments have a lot of reserves in our ITCs. It's one of the bigger issues because no one considers this reserves as as receivables or based. They are not going to consider it as even collateral too. Just it's laying as a stack over there. No use to us. It's a bigger burden to us in pharma segment as we are in inverted tax system, 18 and 12, 6%. Most of the industries in Pondicherry are not brand makers, they are third-party manufacturers. We do others. We have merely a 6 to 8% of margin, where so that there won't be much value addition to our products. It's just conversion value. So that automatically all our balance sheet will have a lot of reserves in our ITCs. It's a burden to us, and something should be done with respect to the delayed payment it should be applied to the ITCs available, so that there is a timeline. Like whatever we say to our customers, we can't force our customers because ultimately as MSME we have no other choice. We need a business. Though government is initiating all these things and a lot of things are coming. As bill discounting, chairman said, there is one thing from InvoiceSmart like that. InvoiceSmart is floated by Axis Bank. They are initiating that they will load all the bills of our customer in the common site and it will be auctioned and we get a 7 to 9% of discounting per annum basis. Immediately we'll get it. But the only thing is that it should be the tax part is borne by MSME. It should be on the, as per the rules, it should be on the not for it should be yes, it should be, it's RBI norms. It's borne by MSMEs, but it will be on the other side. And it can be, as already there is the regulations for bill discounting all these things. It can be more regularized by government so that it can be borne by the bigger company or customers. So that it can be, instead of asking them to pay to the customer directly or making agreements, they could directly make the vending banks of our customers to have a tie-up for making the payment. It will be easy. Instead of asking them, you pay, they give a checks and we have a check in our ballots, not presenting it. All these things happen. Okay, they make a vouchers. All these things happen. It's very normal. We can't force and we can't disclose anything. We can win because we need a business at the end of the day. Without business, nothing is going to happen. We need a business. We bend. We actually, as MSMEs, are only people without backing. We completely bend. Only support what we have is the government. We rely on the government, and we came here because I think this is the first time I'm going to a symposium organized by council because it's very attractive. Payments are very attractive for all the MSMEs. I came here to represent our thought process. It's about how to improve jointly, come out ideas and to improve the systems. Regarding direct payment, there are two systems. The bill discounting interest should be paid by the customers. It can be implemented only by the government policies. Not we can't ask them to do anything. It can be done. Other thing is that regarding this payment should be also included ITCs. Can be maximum 1 year. After 1 year, 45 days like that. It will be more easy for us to go forward.
The government of இந்தியாவில் வந்து நிறைய ஸ்கீம்ஸ் கொடுத்துருக்கக்குள்ள அந்த ஸ்கீம்ஸ் எல்லாமே வந்து போர்ட்டல் மூலிமா கிடைக்குது. சார் வந்து அது சரியாக ப்ரொபகண்டா இல்லைன்ற மாதிரி கேட்டிருந்தாங்க. ஆல் ஓவர் இந்தியாவில் பார்க்க போனால் 3.3 crores MSME யூனிட் இருக்குது. அது மூலிமா வந்து 10 lakh crores எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் அவங்களுக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்கு. அதனால் வந்து கவர்மெண்ட் ஆஃப் இந்தியா நிறைய ஸ்கீம்ஸ் கொடுத்து அந்த ஸ்கீம்ஸ் மூலிமா இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் ப்ரமோட் பண்ணணும். எம்எஸ்எம்இயுடைய செயின் சப்ளை நல்லா இருக்கணும், டெக்னாலஜி இம்ப்ரூவ்மெண்ட் இருக்கணும், பேமெண்ட் எங்கேயும் லேக் ஆகக்கூடாது. அப்படின்றதுக்காக வேண்டி தான் வந்து இந்த 43BH அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு பேமெண்ட் மோடுக்காக ஒரு புதுசாக ஒரு அமெண்ட்மெண்ட் கொண்டு வந்திருந்தாங்க. பட் அதில் வந்து நிறையா இஷ்யூஸ் இருக்குது. பட் அதனால் வந்து பேமெண்ட் வந்து நமக்கு சரியாக கிடைக்குமாங்கிறது வந்து உறுதிப்படுத்த முடியாத ஒரு சுச்சுவேஷன். ஒரு எம்எஸ்எம்இ வந்து ரிஜிஸ்டர்டு எம்எஸ்சி உதயம் ரிஜிஸ்டர்டு எம்எஸ்சி வந்து நம்ம லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேலுக்கோ பிக் ஸ்கேலுக்கோ சப்ளை பண்ணுறாரு. அவங்க வந்து 45 daysக்குள்ளே பேமெண்ட்டு கொடுக்கணும் அப்படின்றது கண்டிஷன்ஸ் இருந்தாலும் அது வந்து இயர் எண்டில் வந்து 31st March வரக்குள்ள அது ஓகே. பட் மிடில் ஆஃப் தி ஃபினான்ஷியல் இயர் ஜூனில் வாங்கிட்டு செப்டம்பரில் பேமெண்ட் கொடுத்தாங்கன்னா அந்த டிலே பேமெண்ட்டுக்கு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் அவங்க நாம் டிமாண்ட் பண்ணுறோம், சப்ளையர் டிமாண்ட் பண்ணுறோம். பட் பையர் அவங்க கொடுக்குறாங்களா, அதை அவங்க கொடுக்க முடியலன்னா அதை நாம் கிளைம் பண்ணுறதுக்கு நமக்கு என்ன சோர்ஸ் இருக்குது அப்படின்றது அது ஒரு இஷ்யூஸ் இருக்குது. ஒரே ப்ராடக்ட் வந்து எம்எஸ்எம்இயும் தயார் பண்ணுறாங்க, லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேலும் தயார் பண்ணுறாங்க, மீடியம் ஸ்கேலும் தயார் பண்ணுறாங்க. பட் அதை நம்ம வாங்குறவர் வந்து லார்ஜில் அண்ட் மீடியமில் வாங்கினார்னா அவருக்கு அந்த 43 BH வந்து அப்ளிகபிள் ஆகாது. ஸோ அந்த இடத்துல வந்து மைக்ரோ அண்டு ஸ்மால் வந்து காம்படிட் பண்ண முடியாது. நம்ம வந்து இந்த கவர்மெண்ட்டுடைய ஃபெசிலிட்டிஸ், பேங்க் ஸ்கீம்ஸ் இதெல்லாம் அவைல் பண்ணணுன்னா உதயம் ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் தேவைப்படுது. அந்த உதயம் ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் இருந்தால் தான் 43 BH வந்து நம்ம ஃபுல்ஃபில் பண்ண முடியும். ஆனால் இப்போ இந்த லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேலோ இல்லை வந்து மீடியம் ஸ்கேலோ இருக்கவங்க உங்கள் ஸ்மால் அண்ட் மீடியமில் வாங்கக்குள்ள ஸ்மால் அண்டு மைக்ரோவில் வாங்கக்குள்ள உங்களுக்கு 45 days பேமெண்ட் கொடுக்க வேண்டியிருக்கு. அதனால் வந்து நீங்கள் இதை டீரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் பண்ண முடியுமா அப்படின்னு கேட்குறாங்க. இல்லை நீங்கள் வந்து ஒரு ட்ரேடர் மூலிமா எங்களுக்கு சப்ளை பண்ணுங்க. இதில் ட்ரேடர் மூலிமா நம்ம சப்ளை கொடுக்கறதுனால அவங்களுக்கு டிலே பேமெண்ட்டுக்கு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் கொடுக்க தேவையில்லை. அந்த டிலே பேமெண்ட்டுடைய இது வந்து அவங்களுக்கு அப்ளிகபிள் ஆகலை. இப்போ ஒரு மைக்ரோவும் தயார் பண்ணுறாரு, ஒரு ஸ்மாலும் தயார் பண்ணுறாரு. அந்த ப்ராடக்டை வந்து நம்ம நேரடியாக கொண்டுட்டு போயிட்டு எண்ட் யூஸருக்கு கொடுக்கறதில்ல. மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தி ப்ராடக்ட் வந்து நம்ம ட்ரேடர் மூலியமாக தான் சப்ளை பண்ணுறோம். உதாரணத்துக்கு எடுத்துக்கிட்டோம்னா இந்த ஹவுஸ் ஹோல்டு ஆர்டிகல்ஸ், பேக்கிங் மெட்டீரியல், எலக்ட்ரிக்கல் ஃபிட்டிங்ஸு, பல்ப்ஸு இதெல்லாம் வந்து நேரடியாக எண்ட் யூஸருக்கு போகாமல் ட்ரேடர் மூலியமாக தான் போகுது. ஸோ அப்போ அந்த ட்ரேடர் மூலியமாக போகக்குள்ள அவங்க பேமெண்ட்டை வந்து வித்தின் 45 days கொடுக்கணுன்னு ஒரு கமிட்மெண்ட் அவங்களுக்கு கிடையாது. ஸோ அவங்க வந்து அதை என்ஜாய் பண்ணிடுறாங்க. அப்போ அந்த ஸ்மால் அண்டு மைக்ரோவுக்கு உண்டான பேமெண்ட் வந்து 45 daysல வருங்கிறது நிச்சயமாக கிடையாது. இன்னொரு எக்ஸாம்பிள் எடுத்தோம்னா நம்ம வந்து ஒரு ஸ்மால் அண்ட் மைக்ரோ அவங்க ஒரு காம்பனண்ட் தயார் பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா அவங்களுடைய ரா மெட்டீரியல் சப்ளையர் ட்ரேடராக இருக்கார். பட் ட்ரேடர் சப்ளை ரா மெட்டீரியல் கொடுக்குறாரு, அவர் கையில் இவங்க வாங்குறவங்க வந்து வித்தின் 10 டேஸில் பேமெண்ட் கொடுக்கணும், 15 டேஸில் பேமெண்ட் கொடுக்கணும்னு ஒரு கமிட்மெண்ட்டோட தான் வாங்குறாங்க. இன்கேஸ் அதை வந்து 15 டேஸ்க்குள்ளே கொடுக்கலாம், அவருக்கு டிலே பேமெண்ட்டுக்கு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் கொடுக்குறாரு. அவங்க ட்ரேடராக இருந்தாலும் டைம்லி பேமெண்ட் இல்லைன்னா அதுக்கு ஒரு டெபிட் நோட் இருக்குது, அதுக்கு ஒரு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இருக்குது. அந்த இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டை கொடுக்குறாரு. அவர் தயார் பண்ண பொருளை வந்து ஒரு எம்எஸ்எம்இக்கு கொடுத்தாருன்னா பேமெண்ட் டைமில் கிடைக்குது. ஆனால் அவர் தயார் பண்ணுறது ட்ரேடருக்கோ அப்படி இல்லை ஒரு லார்ஜ் அண்ட் மீடியமோ கொடுத்தாருன்னா அவருக்கு அந்த இது கிடைக்கல, இந்த பாதுகாப்பு டிலே பேமெண்ட் பாதுகாப்பு அவருக்கு கிடைக்கல. ஸோ இப்போ அந்த இடத்துல பார்க்கப்போனால் வந்து அந்த மைக்ரோ அண்ட் மீடியம் ட்ரேடர்கிட்ட வாங்கக்குள்ளே வட்டி கொடுக்குறாரு, அவர் சப்ளை பண்ணுற இடத்துல அவரால் வட்டி கிளைம் பண்ண முடியல இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டு. பட் நம்ம ஆக்டில் வந்து இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டு கொடுக்கணும்னு சொல்லியிருக்கு. சப்ளையர் வந்து இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டை ஃபோர்ஸ் பண்ணாருன்னா அவருக்கு ஃப்யூச்சர் ஆர்டர் கிடைக்காது, பிஸ்னஸ் கிடைக்காது. அவர் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் அவசியம் கொடுக்கணும்னு ஏதாவது ஒரு கிளாஸ் இருக்கா? அவர் கொடுக்கலன்னா அவருக்கு என்ன ஒரு பனிஷ்மெண்ட் இருக்குது? அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு தகவல் அதில் கிடையாது. ஆக்சுவலாக இதை நம்ம ரெக்டிஃபை பண்ணணும்னா எந்த ஒரு மேனுஃபேக்சரர் தயார் பண்ணாலும் இன்னொரு மேனுஃபேக்சரருக்கோ ட்ரேடருக்கோ கொடுக்கக்குள்ள மேனுஃபேக்சரருக்கு வித்தின் 45 டேஸில் பேமெண்ட் வரணும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு கண்டிஷன்ஸ் இருந்ததுன்னா அது லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேல், மீடியம் ஸ்கேல், மைக்ரோ, ஸ்மால் யாருக்காக இருந்தாலும் 45 டேஸில் பேமெண்ட் கிடைக்கும். ட்ரேடர் வாங்கினாலும் 45 டேஸில் கொடுக்கணும், என்டியூசர் வாங்கினாலும் கேஷ் பேமெண்ட்டில் தான் வாங்க போகிறாங்க, இல்லை இண்டஸ்ட்ரீஸ் டு இண்டஸ்ட்ரீஸ் வாங்கினாலும் 45 டேஸில் கிடைக்கும். ஸோ இந்த ஆக்டில் வந்து மீடியம் அண்டு லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேலையும் கொண்டுட்டு வரணும். அவங்க சப்ளை பண்ணுற ப்ராடக்ட்டுக்கும் அந்த 43BH அவங்களையும் கவரேஜ் கொடுக்கணும். ஸோ அப்படி வந்தால் தான் எந்த மேனுஃபேக்சரர் தயார் பண்ணாலும் அவருடைய ப்ராடக்டை ட்ரேடருக்கோ வேறு யாருக்கோ சேல் பண்ணக்குள்ள வித்தின் 45 டேஸ் பேமெண்ட் கிடைக்கும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு நிச்சயமான ஒரு உறுதித்தன்மை இருக்கும். அப்போ வந்து அந்த சைக்கிள் வந்து எங்கேயுமே பிரேக் ஆகாது. கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து நமக்கு 43BH கொடுத்துருந்தாலும் அதை நடைமுறையில் நிறைய சிக்கல் இருக்குது. அப்படி இல்லை நம்ம ஜிஎஸ்டி போர்ட்டல் மூலிமா டிலே பேமெண்ட்டுக்காக அவங்களுக்கு நம்ம என்ன பண்ண போகிறோம் அதை மானிட்டர் பண்ணுறதுக்கு இருக்குது. பட் இன்னும் அடிஷ்னல் ஃபீச்சர்ஸ் அதில் இன்க்ளூட் பண்ணால் நல்லாயிருக்கும். இது ஒரு இது. இப்போ நம்ம கவர்மெண்ட்டில் எம்எஸ்எம்இக்காக நிறையா ஸ்கீம்ஸ் கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. அந்த ஸ்கீம்ஸை நாம் வந்து அவைல் பண்ணணுன்னா நமக்கு வந்து உதயம் ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் தேவைப்படுது. இப்போ இந்த 43Bஸில் அமெண்ட்மெண்ட் வரலன்னா சப்ளையர் வந்து எல்லாருமே வந்து டீரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் பண்ணால் தான் அவர்களுக்கு ஃப்யூச்சர் பிஸ்னஸ் கிடைக்குன்னு ஒரு சுச்சுவேஷன் இருக்குது. அப்படி இல்லை, அந்த பெரிய லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேல் அண்ட் மீடியம் ஸ்கேல் என்ன சொல்கிறாங்க, நீங்கள் டைரெக்டாக எங்களுக்கு கொடுக்காதீங்க, நாங்கள் ஒரு வெண்டார் ஒன்று க்ரியேட் பண்ணுறோம், நீங்கள் எல்லாம் அவங்களுக்கு சப்ளை பண்ணுங்கள், எல்லாத்தையுமே நான் அவங்க மூலிமா சோர்ஸ் பண்ணிக்கிறோன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. அப்போ அவர் ட்ரேடராக மாறுறாரு. ட்ரேடர் வந்து மேனுஃபேக்சரர் கொடுக்கக்குள்ள அவருக்கு அங்கே டைம் லிமிட் கிடையாது. அதே ட்ரேடர் வந்து எம்எஸ்எம்இ மேனுஃபேக்சரருக்கு அவருக்கும் டைமில் கொடுக்கணுன்ற ஒரு இது கிடையாது. ஸோ அந்த இடத்துல ஒரு சின்ன ட்ராபேக் இருக்குது அது. ஸோ இதை வந்து கரெக்டான பேனலில் கொண்டு போனால் தான் இந்த செயின் லிங்க் பிரேக் ஆகாது. இந்த கவர்மெண்ட் பிளான் பண்ண சிஸ்டம் சக்ஸஸ்ஃபுல்லாக வராது. இப்போ பேங்க்லேயும் வந்து நமக்கு நிறையா ஸ்கீம் கொடுத்துருக்காங்க. CGTMSE அது ஒரு ஸ்கீம் இருக்குது. அதுமாரி பிரதம மந்திரி முத்ரா யோஜனான்னு ஒரு ஸ்கீம் இருக்குது. பிரைம் மினிஸ்டர் எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் ஜென்ரேஷன் ப்ரோக்ராம் அப்படின்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது. ஸ்டாண்டப் ஸ்கீம்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது. ஸ்டார்ட் அப் ஸ்கீம் இருக்குது. இது எல்லாத்துக்குமே உதயம் வேணும். அது உதயமில் ரிஜிஸ்டர் பண்ணி லோன் வாங்கிட்டு இண்டஸ்ட்ரீஸை ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணிட்டாருன்னா சப்ளைக்கு போகல அங்கே உதயம் வந்து எந்த அளவுக்கு அவருக்கு ஹெல்ப்பாக இருக்குன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. அதை நாம் கொஞ்சம் சரி பண்ணணும். அப்புறம் நம்ம இன்கம் டேக்ஸ் ஆஃபீஸர் வந்திருக்கிறதுனால சொல்கிறேன், இந்த ஸ்டார்ட் அப் யூனிட்ன்றவங்க வந்து ஒரு மைக்ரோவோ ஸ்மாலாக இருந்தாக்கா அவர் நிச்சயமாக வந்து அது ஓனரே தான் பர்ச்சேஸும் பார்க்கணும், சேல்ஸும் பார்க்கணும், மார்க்கெட்டிங்கும் பார்க்கணும், ப்ரொடக்ஷனும் பார்க்கணும், எக்ஸ்பேன்ஷனும் பார்க்கணும். அவருக்கு இன்கம் டேக்ஸ் ஃபைலிங்கில் ஃபஸ்ட்டு 3 இயர்ஸ் அந்த டைம் லிமிட் இருக்குது இல்லைங்களா, மார்ச்சில் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணி செப்டம்பருக்குள்ளே ஃபைல் பண்ணணுன்றத ஒரு ஸ்டார்ட் அப் யூனிட்டுக்கு நீங்கள் இன்னும் கூட அதை டைமை எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் பண்ணி கொடுக்கலாம். ஏன்னா ஒரு ஃபஸ்ட்டு 3 இயர்ஸ் வந்து ப்ரொடக்ஷன் எக்ஸ்பேன்ஷன் சக்ஸஸ்ஃபுல்லாக கொண்டு போகணும், ப்ராஃபிட்டபுளாக கொடுக்கணும் தான் பிளானிங்கில் இருப்பாரே தவிர வித்தின் 6 மந்த்ஸில் ஐடி ஃபைல் பண்ணணும், அக்கௌண்ட்ஸை ஃபைனலைஸ் பண்ணணுன்றது நிச்சயமாக முடியாது. அது மாதிரி இந்த இன்கம் டேக்ஸில் வந்து டிடிஎஸ்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது. 15,000க்கு மேலே போகல டிடிஎஸ் கொடுக்கணுன்றது. அதை வந்து மைக்ரோவுக்கும் ஸ்மாலுக்கும் வந்து அது ஏதாவது ஒரு எக்ஸம்ஷன் கொடுக்கலாம். எல்லா டேக்ஸஸ் டியூட்டிஸ் எல்லாத்தையும் ஒன்றா கொண்டு வந்து தான் நம்ம ஜிஎஸ்டின்னு கொண்டு வந்தோம். பட் மைக்ரோ ஸ்மாலுக்கு இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் அந்த டிடிஎஸ் டிசிஎஸ் இந்த ஒர்க்கு கொஞ்சம் பேர்டனாக தான் இருக்குது. ஏன்னா அவங்களுக்கு வந்து அந்த ஆஃபீஸ் எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ்மெண்ட்ன்றது வந்து அந்தளவுக்கு கிடையாது. அதில் ஏதாவது அவங்களுக்கு பண்ண முடியுமான்னு பார்க்கலாம். ஏன்னா அவங்களுக்கு வந்து 10ஆம் தேதிக்குள்ளே ஜிஎஸ்டி சேல்ஸ் ரிப்போர்ட் கொடுக்கணும், 15ஆம் தேதிக்குள்ளே பிஎஃப்இஎஸ்ஐ ஃபைல் பண்ணணும், 20ஆம் தேதிக்குள்ளே வந்து ஜிஎஸ்டி ஃபைல் பண்ணணும், மறுபடியும் வந்து சேலரி இந்த கேப்பில் சேலரி கொடுத்துருக்கணும், பவர் பில் கட்டியாகணும், டே டு டே பர்ச்சேஸு சேல்ஸு கலெக்ஷனு இதையும் பார்த்தாகணும். சப்போஸ் பிஎஃப்இஎஸ்ஐ 15க்குள்ளே கட்டலை, அவங்க என்ன பண்ணுறாங்க, இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் சார்ஜ் பண்ணுறாங்க, இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் வாங்கிடுறாங்க. அப்படி ரொம்ப லாங் பெண்டிங் இருந்ததுன்னா நோட்டீஸ் கொடுக்குறாங்க, பீனலுக்கு கொண்டு போகிறாங்க. ஆனால் ஐடி ஃபைலிங் வரக்குள்ள இதை வந்து டிஸ்அலோவ் பண்ணுறாங்க. ஒரு தவறுக்கு ஒரு பக்கம் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட்டும் வாங்குறீங்க, ஒரு பக்கம் வந்து டிஸ்அலோவும் பண்ணுறீங்க. இப்போ ஜிஎஸ்டியில் வந்து டிலேனாக்கா அதுக்கு இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இருக்குது, பெனால்ட்டி இருக்குது, ஆனால் டிஸ்அலோவ் கிடையாது. ஏன் அந்த பிஎஃப்இஎஸ்ஐக்கு மட்டும் வந்து டிஸ்அலோவ் பண்ணுறீங்க? இப்போ நம்ம 43 BHல டிஸ்அலோவ் கொடுத்துருக்கீங்க, பட் அதில் வந்து அவர் டைமில் வந்து நெக்ஸ்ட் பீரியட் கொடுத்துட்டாருன்னா மறுபடியும் வந்து எஸ் நான் கொஸ்டினை முன்னாடியே ரைஸ் பண்ணிடுறேன் சார். அது ஏன்னா ஸ்டார்ட் அப் வந்து நிறைய ட்ரபுளில் தான் போகிறாங்க. அவங்களுக்கு நிச்சயமாக வந்து ரெகுலர் இண்டஸ்ட்ரீஸுக்கு கொடுக்குற மாதிரி ஒரு டைட் ஷெட்யூல் வந்து அவங்களுக்கு கொஞ்சம் ரிலாக்ஸ் பண்ணலாம். அதில் மோரோவர் அவங்களுக்கு ஃபினான்ஷியல் கிரைசஸும் இருக்குது, அதையும் நம்ம வந்து இன்கம் டேக்ஸ் மூலிமா பார்க்கணும்.
Now, before I go into this regular subject also, a small word about 𝐲𝐽 I represent an organization, All India organization called 𝐲𝐽. It's an All India organization with over 48,000 MSMEs as members. Across all states of India we are there. And in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry also we are about 2,500 strong. Okay. So we do represent these problems in various panels of government. We do have the opportunity like CII to represent our views in different panels of the government. But here I would like to say about the specific problem regarding the delayed payment. Madam, first of all, thanks to government for taking the concern that at least they should get the payment. Thanks to your concern. But our opinion is that any amount of coercion by law is not going to make the industry to pay on time. This is our humble opinion because practically we have seen it also. See, OEMs, here also I would like to slightly differentiate delayed payment. OEMs, mostly companies with over 500 crore turnover, they are already registered in TREDS and they make payment on time. Most of the OEMs pay their suppliers on time. And even tier 1 companies also, they also pay on time. But the problem comes to the suppliers of tier 2 and tier 3 companies who after receiving their payment on time do not pass it on to their vendors on time, maybe due to different reasons. I don't go into the details of these things, or maybe yes, council will see. It is here OEMs pay on time, but largely when they say corporates do not pay, they immediately take out a list of corporates who are about 1,000 crore turnover and above, and they say yes, auditors will say they are paying on time. No, we also agree they pay on time. But the real crux of the problem comes when it comes to tier 2 and down the line, tier 3, tier 4, and micro units mostly do not supply even to tier 2 directly. They supply only to tier 4, 5, maybe down the level you take to any level. And that is the reason why micro industries are suffering. And one problem, if you ask me the role of micro industries in India, we'll say we act as financiers to our customers by extending 90 to 120 days credit without any interest, as well as to our suppliers also, because they do not give credit to micro industries, and micro industries pay advance to their suppliers also, wait for a week for delivery to come. So indirectly, it is the micro industries that is running parallel banking system. And when it comes to financing the micro industries, banks are very stringent. They say, and in fact, it is the most profitable priority sector lending for bankers, because micro industries are charged anywhere between 12% and above when it comes to interest rate. But the bigger industries, they have a say. They'll say, if you do not pay, we'll go to the next bank who will give it as 7% or 8%. They have the option, but micro industries do not have that option also. So we, apart from paying, acting as bankers to government, that is industries, we also support your exchequer also by paying penalty, by paying interest to interest on GST, interest on delayed payment to income tax, because we don't get our payment on time. This is the real crux of the problem. But any amount of, see, 43BH was brought in with a good intention. But what is the reaction? Most of the corporates, they ask MSMEs to deregister and register as traders. If you have to survive, you have no other option but to follow what your customer says, because as per Mahatma Gandhi, customer is the king. He is the God. So we have to necessarily follow what our customer dictates. So that is the situation that we are in. And here, when the government is so much interested in ensuring early payments to MSMEs, my request is that instead of looking forward to private players to ensure timely payments to MSMEs, if at all anything can be done by the government itself to ensure smooth flow of working capital. All this works into working capital constraint only, reduce the working capital constraint. We have certain suggestions from our end, which is revenue neutral. There is no loss to the government, because we know if we suggest anything that incurs loss to the government, definitely nobody will be interested to this one. We have got some suggestions which are revenue neutral and will help the industry as a whole, be it small, bigger or micro as a whole. The first suggestion, of course, is if the problem is when the customer delays, he delays the GST portion also. The GST portion accounts for about 18% generally, that is the base rate normally. Even 5%, 12% is very negligible this one. So 18%, and in auto component sector it is 28%. He delays the payment for GST component also. So what happens is, we are forced to pay the GST portion also, wait for 90 to 120 days, and that itself is causing a severe working capital constraint on our working capital resources. So my suggestion is, right now, when a supplier files the GSTR1, it automatically translates to GSTR3B of the seller. My request is, since the buyer is also a registered person, for B2B transaction only, I refer all these suggestions. For B2B transaction, instead, when we raise the GSTR1, if it is transferred to GSTR3B of the buyer, then the buyer will pay the tax portion himself against his purchases. The situation is still worse when one of the customer files for bankruptcy. We have already paid income tax, we have already paid GST, but the customer files bankruptcy, and God only knows when the payment will come, and that too, to what extent. Whether their tribunal allows 100% payment, which is most likely no. It may even decide to pay 10 to 15% to the creditors. And if it is deciding a 10 to 15% creditor, it may not be even sufficient to cater to the GST portion also. So this is one thing I want your high office to take it to the to the council, so that whenever a company files bankruptcy, all its vendors should be given credit of the GST portion for which they have already filed DST 3B. Yes, the amount they have already spent. Why they should wait years to get it from the government?
Is your suggestions for relating to GST are going to change the whole regime, put the GST on its head now, like down. So these things were thought through, and as I say repeatedly, law is a common minimum denominator, and this, I think one of the hallmarks of this GST is unbroken credit chain, which can happen when everybody pays in time. And your suggestions somehow give me a feeling that they'll make the system too complicated, and it will not be as smooth and simple as it is now. But these are contentious issues we will definitely debate.
I would like to say, after the section 43BH has been introduced, the person who is supposed to get the payment on time, if he doesn't get the payment on time, the payment provider, the customer who is supposed to pay the payment on time, he is not penalized, he is not punished. Although there was an illusive feeling given to the public that he will be penalized by way of 30% income tax to be paid before 31/3/2024 or 25 or whatever financial year. If you don't pay your supplier on time, you may have to land up paying 30% income tax on the amount which you have not paid, which will be taken into your account as extra profit. But as soon as you understand that the next financial year, if the customer pays the money to the supplier, the next financial year will carry forward that expense to that account, and whatever income tax he has already paid will be taken credit for the next year. So net result, if you say that 30% income tax what the customer has paid for the delayed payment, that income tax comes back to him in the next financial year. He doesn't lose anything from his pocket. So looking at this point of view, in this perspective, I have a suggestion which can turn things to good. Unless government interferes into this system, supplier cannot be ensured of any payment on time made. This is for sure. No customer or supplier can go to the police station and stand for the dispute on payment. No people can take it forward with them in the relationship of business after that. So unless government can make better use of the GST portal with more innovative ideas and design in it, so that the government is also not affected, the supplier is also not affected, the customer also gets into a trap where he has to pay on time. This kind of system has to be introduced so that MSME sector, micro and small industries get their payment on time without any second question. 100% assurance comes to his mind, then he will grow automatically. This will contribute to the growth of that sector in India. Our Make in India concept will definitely flare up well when they are assured of their payment without any second thought. 100% they are getting payment on time. Then their NPA levels in the bank will also drastically reduce. Because people who have taken loan for doing their business, they are not able to pay back their loan on time because they are not getting payment from their customer on time. Although they have good intentions to pay for the bank, they are not able to pay the money on time. In cases where there are NPAs with micro and small industry, if you go into bankers, ledger accounts and all these things, analyze with the bank manager, they will be able to explain you better that this customer has been a good customer for the bank for the last 15 years. He was paying on time. Now that the business is becoming tougher, this customer has not paid on time. He is not having enough money to pay to us, so this account has become NPA. So at least the bankers will be able to recover the NPA money from the micro and small industries much easier than before. Then the supplier can make an entry in the GST portal. A special entry provision should be given where payments which are delayed more than 60 days, which has not come to the supplier, he has to enter the invoice details, date of invoice, the invoice number, customer name, GST number, and invoice value. So once he makes an entry saying that the payment has not come for this invoice, this will have a reflection in the customer's GST portal when he is filing a GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Even if there is any flaw you find in my idea, some corrections here and there may be required when we want to implement it practically.
The issue which would be troubling most of the industries would be delayed payments. I think some of you already know. So for addressing the delayed payments, there is a provision in the MSME Development Act. So they can file a petition to MSCFC, that is Council, MSME Facilitation Council. So there is only one MSCFC in the UT of Puducherry, and it is headed by Director Industries as chairman. So in other states, like many other, like based on districts, they have MSCFC. But here we have only one MSCFC. So this delayed payments issue is also parallelly being addressed in a program of Government of India that is called RAM, Rising and Accelerating MSME Performance. So one of the 7 interventions which are proposed under RAM is addressing the delayed payments. So delayed payments means beyond the agreed period. So whenever there is a delay, beyond the agreed period, usually 45 days, the Act prescribes 45 days. If there is a delay beyond that, so they can approach the MSCFC, and MSCFC can pass an award. So first it will be like a 2-stage process. First we'll try to conciliate. So like there will be practical issues, like many a time what happens, so the other, the person who is receiving the goods or services, he may default for various reasons. One of the typical reasons is he might have incurred loss, or he might have, there may be other implementation issues, executional issues. Because of that, there will be delay. So we cannot strictly go as per law, and we need to conciliate sometimes, saying that somebody has to give and somebody has to take, and we try to conciliate. If there is conciliation, to put it in simple words, it is like panchayat, kind of thing. So whenever there is agreement, we wind it up there. So if conciliation is not happening, that means if both the parties are not coming down to terms which are not written as per their agreement, so we'll go for arbitration. So arbitration basically, as the previous speaker was speaking, it will be based on records, mostly based on records. And arbitration award will be passed. So there is a catch here. So whether award can be executed. So MSCFC, as of now, there is no provision for execution of the award. So the person, the decree holder has to go to the civil court and file for EP. So that is the only limitation. But the Government of India is reviewing. They are seeking suggestions from the industry bodies how they can further improvise the process. So maybe in the next year, coming year, they will be amending these provisions relating to delayed payments. As of now, the Act prescribes 3 times the bank interest. So 3 times bank interest, in my opinion, it will be very difficult for the other person to pay. And based on the analysis of the cases which we have dealt at MSFC, some typical cases would be like lack of awareness regarding contractual terms and contract management. Most of the industries, they may not be aware, even some of the government agencies may not be aware of the contractual terms. I think Madam is there, so she understands from chemical control. So they had supplied some goods. So it is a time-bound contract. So, but it could not be executed in full because there was delay on part of the receiver, the SHAR, Sri Haripota Range Office. So they had not completed the civil work, because of which they could not erect. So now whose fault is that? So fault is not on the supplier side, but on the receiver side. So they couldn't complete the civil work. And there was the agreement says that they should supply by within 1 year from the date of signing. So that 1 year has ended. So typically people who are dealing with PWD contracts should be knowing extension of time. They call EOT. So unless extension of time is there, that is mutually they agree to extend the period of contract, the contract lapses by that date it ends as per contract, Indian contract. So when it lapses, so all the benefits or whatever liabilities they are accruing, that should be wound up there. So that means like in this case, typically what happens is they had retained certain amount as performance guarantee, 10% and all. So they need to release it. Once that period is over, they have to release. So that means lack of awareness regarding contract law also impacts the payment and all. Many a time typically in government departments, people who are dealing with contracts are not well educated in contract act. Since I am from law background, I can say that. And many a time people may not be understanding certain things and all. So some other typical delayed payment cases are like whenever dealing with government, somebody will say without tender you execute a work. So they execute. So after that they'll say this is not done, work order is not issued, that and all. So for that also there is a provision in contract. Somebody cannot take benefit without paying for it. So if I cannot say that somebody came and installed AC, I didn't ask for it, so I will not pay. So having agreed, it is like I am liable to pay for it. So reasonable cost, whatever is there, I have to pay. So that is another thing. So in during emergency periods, the government sometimes they resort to that nomination or other thing, which will be deviating from the normal procedure of procurement of goods or services. Whenever somebody gets into that, so they are entitled for the payment, normal payment. So another case what we have seen is like wherever there are supply of certain models, so they need to be clear on what are the terms and conditions. So like typically a few cases we have seen. Somebody is supplying a mold for manufacturing shoes or other things. So that mold, they will be having initially approved mold is there. So approved mold they have to keep and they have to see whether the mold which they have supplied is matching that parameters or not. If not matching, then there will be a lot of other issues. So if the many, like typically the kind of cases which we get is, like they have supplied a mold and they produced 1 lakh pairs of shoes, and then when they sold, they incurred loss. So point here is that, so without going for trial production, how did they go for mass production? So in that case, definitely the problem is on the other side. So you should have tested it, whether it is suiting its parameters or not, then you should have gone. So these are some of the practical issues which we are getting in MSDFC Council. And second thing is, when during interaction in some of the meetings, which we conducted for consultation for RAM. So some of the industry members are not aware of MSDFC at all. So that we need to build awareness. Second thing is, so discounting also they are not aware. TREDS platform is there, I think bankers also not encouraging. TREDS platform is another thing which like whenever, like typically what happens, the supplier will not pay immediately, but they need money for working capital requirements and all. So they may borrow elsewhere and all at a higher interest cost. So and in TREDS, they can upload the receipt and get discounted. If it is 100 rupees, if it is say, let us say 2 rupees discount, 98 rupees they get. The person who discounts will collect the money from the original buyer after the after the period of 45 days or whatever it is. So this is called discounting. So in TREDS platform, the government of India has created a platform where they can upload and get this facility. So bankers or others will bid, other financial institutions will bid and give the money. So idea is that the industry owner, so who supplies goods or services, need not be put to stress of getting funds at a higher interest rate to manage its working capital, and this is the mechanism which is given. So similarly under RAMP, we can, so one of the interventions as I mentioned is delayed payment, addressing delayed payments. So one certain institutional problems also there, like typically, since I am also looking after PIPTIC, so what happens many a time, some of the allottees of land are shed, so they construct and they mortgage, or the rights will be with PIPTIC. So whenever they get, they want to get loan from the bank, so it takes typically 2 months, 3 months, sometimes they pursue and get it cleared. So this is because there is lack of some system We are not able to process quickly, and of course, typical bureaucratic apathy will be there. So that also we are trying to address under RAM. So we'll build a system which will throw out all the information instantaneously, and we can bring down the time delay from typically 3 months to maybe within a week or so. So these are some of the interventions which we are proposing. So industry members, since all of you have gathered here, so if you have any suggestions, so you can just give so that we can include in the systematic investment plan which we are proposing under RAM. Incidentally, from RAM team from Government of India, 2 people have come here for interaction. Maybe I'll ask them to interact with some of the industry associations also. And one more thing regarding delayed payment is MSCFC will be like quasi-judicial body, so it has to conduct proceedings typical to similar to court. So that means we need to serve the notice to the opponent, and then we have to hear his viewpoint and then take a call. So many cases we have seen that address will not be correct. So in this regard, we have been approaching GST department to share that. In fact, one of the industry members suggested that we can just get it from GST portal so that it will be easy to serve the notice and all. So that is one typical thing. And second thing, we have seen some of the respondents deliberately avoiding service of notice. In that case, also, like typically, as for general class of act, we need to serve the notice, then only we can take a call. So without serving, it will be like, even for export order, so service of notice is very important. So without that, that person will be unaware. So there also, if the postal department or the courier person says that he is refusing or otherwise, then we can take a call. He is deliberately avoiding the legal process, then we can take a call. But the non-service due to wrong address, we will not be able to take decisions in that regard. So in this regard, I think the GST returns or GST payment, tax payment and all, will be very important, because there the data will be updated and last known address will be there. So using that, we can serve the notice and take it further. So these are some of the points I thought I'll share.
I personally thank our CAT madam and CAT sir and Commissioner of GST sir. I am from income tax, so by CAT only. I thank the entire GST team for giving me this opportunity. I have a feeling that I should have been allowed to give my presentation in the first instance itself, because everything, the entire symposium is based on the delayed payment to the MSCs. Anyway, it's okay. So I have prepared a small PowerPoint presentation. We'll quickly go through, then we'll have the question and answer session. So it was brought in 2023. Amendment by the Finance Act 2023. It is effective from financial year 23-24. It says it focuses on the payment of the to micro and small enterprises, MSC. The implication is that any allowance or some payable to MSCs will be allowable only on payment basis. In whichever year you are making payment, on that year only you can claim it as a deduction from your P&L. And the non-compliance with this prescribed time limit results in payment-based deduction from profits. And this is section, I think I can skip it, but still, it's any sum payable to associate, payable by the associate to a micro or small enterprises beyond the time limit specified in section 15 of the MSMDE Act will be only allowed if it is paid within the allowed time. Then it's giving about what is a small enterprise or micro enterprise. Next. So the classification of enterprise to be classified as micro, small or medium enterprise. A micro enterprise is where the investment in the plant and machinery or equipment does not exceed 1 crore or the turnover does not exceed 5 crore rupees. And a small enterprise is the one where the investment in plant and machinery or equipment does not exceed 10 crore rupees and turnover does not exceed 50 crore rupees. And the medium enterprise, of course, is not the topic of a discussion, but still the investment in plant and machinery does not exceed 50 crore rupees and the turnover does not exceed 250 crore. So the timelines specified under the Act. If it is payment timelines have been specified on the Act in terms of agreement between the buyer and MSEs, the payment should be made within the earlier of the following date. One is due date specified in the agreement. In case you have entered in the agreement with your buyer, it should be within the due date or 45 days from the date of acceptance of the services. So day of acceptance is the date of actual delivery of goods or the rendering of service. However, if an objection is raised by the buyer in writing within 15 days of the delivery of goods or services, the day of acceptance would be the day on which objection is removed by the MSCs. Then if payment timelines have been specified under the agreement between the buyer and MSCs, payment should be made within 15 days from the date of acceptance. And it's about interest rate, whatever buyer's liability for delayed payment. Impact is section 23 of the Act, MSMED Act. It says disallow the deduction on interest on delayed payment to buyer's income tax complaint. So supposing he is claiming some expenses on account of interest payment that was made to the supplier, that interest will not be allowed in the income tax computation. Then this is a very important provision. So supposing the date of acceptance is 1st April 23 and as per agreement 30th is the due date. If the person makes a payment within the due date, no disallowance in his return of income. Supposing there is no agreement, then it is 15 days time within the, that time. Then if it is March 2024 and is making the payment on 10th April 23-24, then also no disallowance. Last thing is that supposing 1st March is the due date, date of acceptance of services and 10th April is the due date for payment and he is making payment in the 15th June, then he will not be allowed to avail the that expenditure during that particular year. So what I want to convey, supposing this is very important issue, supposing I have to make payment say within this financial year, which I am delaying, then actually this payment will not be allowed as a deduction in our P&L account. That will be only at the time of actual payment only that deduction can be allowed in the P&L account. Otherwise, that expenditure will be added back to your income, and as Mr. has told, 30% of whatever bracket is falling under, that will be added in the income tax. So, others, in case the person claims GST component as the input credit, this expenditure may not be allowed. If it is claiming as an expenditure, then it will be that 43PH will attract. Then if a person is falling under presumptive taxation scheme, we have a scheme called a presumptive taxation scheme, whereby the assessee can declare the return of, his profit at a prescribed rate. In that case, this 43PH will not be applicable. Then another is cash system. Supposing you are adapting cash system of accounting, then also this scheme will not, 43PH will not be applicable. Then so the conclusion is that it is mainly to promote timely payments to the MSCs by the buyers. That's a major thrust of this amendment. And any compliance with payments timelines under Section 15E is crucial to avoid disallowance of deduction under Section. Thank you for giving this opportunity. We are running short of my time, but still doubts can always be cleared. And regarding the concerns raised by our Anbu sir and 𝐓𝐴 sir, we are government servant. We are bound by our own limitations. So we know your concerns that will be taken care of, and it will be represented in the proper forum. Sir. Let me add. Thank you.
I believe everyone will acknowledge today that we had the best gathering where from the MSME entrepreneurs to the regulators and administrators of MSME Act as such, the representatives from the industry, MSME, Laghu Udyog, practitioners and other participants here, that this is one area which we have been looking at or we have been listening to in all our outreach programs which were conducted in GST fora in our office and in other areas the last few years. So this was the idea given by Commissioner Madam, where we thought this has to be addressed and at least should be taken to the right concern and right authorities who would really address to this concern. So that is how this initiative was brought up by Commissioner Madam. And with the guidance, we could make it a reality today. Thank you, Madam, for all the guidance given in this regard. The Laghu Bharati Udyog representatives, I would like to highlight two issues here where really serious concern and practically difficult at MSME level is deregistration, where the buyers are mandating the MSME registrants to deregister themselves to come out of this problem for themselves. And also if the impact of on MSMEs when the buyer is bankrupt. So I believe these issues should be taken at the appropriate level, and I'm sure you are on the right path to address it at the right fora, and you'll get a proper solution on these aspects as soon as possible. Similarly, you also put up on the issue of modifications in GST and all things. As Madam also had said before, GST being a statute which has to be applied uniformly. And these transactions are financial transactions at individual unit level or B2B level, which may not be uniformly applied across the Act, where Act or whatever way you can, but still, there are good sessions which you have put up, which perhaps it would go into the right years and then which are implementable can be already taken into account. I think we are going out of this room today with great exposure to this issue of delayed payments. And also, I should take this opportunity to thank Mr. Amit Nayan, who has come forward to ensure that we have a good gathering and this happens in a very smooth way in this beautiful technology center here. Thank you, Mr. Amit. And with this, I thank one and all. I thank my support staff as well as the support staff of Technology Center and the print and press media here, as well as all once again, the MSME entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much for active participation in this symposium. I think the highlights are the presentation by our speech by Mr. Rudra Gaud and our Income Tax Assistant Commissioner. Actually, all the issues raised earlier, I think some of the issues raised earlier got answered by them. I get a feeling participating in this symposium that most of the MSME fraternity are not trying out the provisions, the full potential of them, they're not aware fully. So they're not clued in, and I have the satisfaction that this symposium has drawn attention to those TREDS portal, to the Facilitation Council, all the provisions relating to that. So I'm at least satisfied that that much awareness we have spread, and I would reiterate that all of you should look at these online portals available, not just Samadhan, but there are other things like the Champions and other 3-4 other portals which are on the msme.gov.in. So please use the potential, then give suggestions. The business ecosystem itself will improve in such a way that these things, this issue becomes irrelevant. I am looking forward for that, because how many ever measures the government takes for ease of doing business, unless the improvement comes within the business ecosystem, I don't think that will be a real change. I'm for that. I think awareness and then and the sensitivity to the sort of liquidity needs of the MSMEs is I think the need of the hour, and I'm sure whoever are non-MSMEs or who are the forums who are having members from non-MSMEs will take that message to them. Thank you very much for the participation, especially to the two distinguished officers here and to all of you.